Welcome back to It's a Mimic, where you never know what you're going to get. Today, Dave and I are going to sit down for a special mailbag episode with one of our Platinum Great Worm tier patrons, Scott, to just casually discuss Eberron and why we love it. There's no real outline or mission statement for this episode per se, but I think that if you've never played in the Eberron campaign setting before, these two should get you excited to try it out by the end of the episode. But before we get started, I want to ask, Scott, how have you been since our last conversation, and have your players found any of our circus performer NPCs yet?
Yeah, I've been doing well. No complaints. Just living life, I suppose. Uh I've finally, as of what is it? We're gonna start on Friday. We'll be in book two of
Oh,
six of our campaign. We finished the first book.
nice.
We've met two of the three that we have created. So they absolutely love Grandma Whiskers. They would do unspeakable horrors for her if she asked,
Of course.
which I knew was going to happen. Pickles was interesting for them to meet because my boyfriend literally was D20 in hand about to roll initiative for this fight. And I'm like, this really isn't a fight, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they each, if I recall, did rather well in the circus that we had after encountering them. So,
Good.
as
Good.
for our skeleton we made, we said, oh, he'll be there to help keep them on track. I haven't needed to help keep them on track. They've been doing real good.
Oh, all
That
right.
is unheard of.
I know, right?
Yeah.
It's weird. They'll spend in a one shot, they'll spend 30 minutes trying to buy a cabbage from a street market and then do a full campaign and they're just, what's the next task? On task. What's next?
Man, that is the opposite of how I want to run it. During the homebrew campaign, it's a sandbox, do what you want. But when I have a one-shot guy stay on task, I want to go home.
Yeah, that one shot may have become a two shot.
I've never known any one-shot to not end up in multiple segments.
That's
Dave,
fair.
Dave, you guys ran a bunch of Candlekeep stuff,
I was
right?
gonna say the first four candle keeps were like true one shots. However, they did take a little bit of modifications.
Yeah, okay. And now, how far through Candlekeep are you?
We stopped doing that. Kyle's taken over Thursdays pretty much exclusively, running his own thing. So I think we got to maybe about halfway through. I think maybe level 9.
And was that 2 shots or 3 shots by then?
3 to 4.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the higher the level, the more
But
complex.
again, we play Thursday nights sometimes for 3 hours, and it's like an hour of that's productive, you know?
Sure, of course. Yeah, you have your first hour of dicking about and your last hour of just stress and tired, right? So,
Yeah, and if we're online, it doesn't flow very well, so it's not,
I'm
not
telling
we
you,
don't get as much done.
this is why I play literally with just my roommates.
yeah,
Hmm.
We're all sitting here, we're all home, and you can't come up with an excuse as to why you can't make it.
pretty much. So, I'm trying to think. I have actually very briefly lived with 4 of my 6 players, so including you, Dave. It was the worst time
Yeah,
of
I
my
guess
life.
so.
So,
Tell me about it.
all right. So I didn't really we didn't have a plan for this episode, which was kind of fun. So like let's just sit down and talk about Eberron, and we can't do that without Dave. So here we are. You specifically asked for Dave, Scott,
I did.
because I assume that you just hate me and yourself. So
I made the journey in from the forest for this, yeah.
Oh, well, thank you, thank you. Although I suppose if you lived around here, you wouldn't want to be in the forest. We got about a foot and a half of snow a
Ooh,
couple days ago.
oh no, it sounds like fun.
yeah,
Well, I like that it stopped snowing because I can see the Rocky Mountains again.
It's weird being Canadian and having people talk to us about snow.
and the
Yeah,
Rocky
that's fair.
Mountains.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
I
that's
appreciate being on this side of it. Yeah.
when most people think of the Rocky Mountains, I like to think that they think of us here in Colorado.
So yeah, we didn't really have a plan for this one. So I sat down and I started to come up with a couple of, well, I'll ask a couple of leading questions if the conversation kind of goes astray. But then I ended up writing 20 questions. So this is kind of a mailbag, I guess.
I love it.
Yeah.
I literally thought of, hey, maybe for one of these episodes, I should just come up with 20 questions and do my own mailbag. But then coming up with 20 questions was hard.
Yeah, I got about 18 questions and then completely blanked, and then I had to reread them and resort them, and then they started to make a little bit more sense to me. But you guys are the Eberron experts, so I'm just going to essentially adjudicate and ask the questions. And do you guys want to roll initiative? We're gonna roll
Sure.
initiative every 5 questions or so, and see who rolls dice better, and then get through some fun Eberron discussions. Because if I can be perfectly honest, this might be my favorite campaign setting.
I will
You
absolutely
are
agree with that.
smart.
Dave, I keep telling everybody that.
I believe that.
So, all right, let's grab dice and roll initiative.
So in true It's a Mimic fashion, I rolled a 5.
Yeah, that's standard. Dave?
4.
That's also true. It's a mimic fashion. Going first with a 5.
Yep.
So, Scott, we'll start with you. How far into your experience with D&D were you when you discovered Eberron?
So it was actually very incredibly early. I had started as a player in a homebrew campaign. The campaign ended up, well, it ended in a TPK, and then the whole group fizzled out when we tried to start something else.
What edition was this? Sorry.
5th edition.
Fifth,
I
okay.
have only ever played 5th edition D&D.
Right. I remember now.
Yeah, it was like 2021, I want to say, maybe 2020, late 2020. I don't know. I was making a Hexblade Warlock for this campaign, and I'm scrolling through all these weapons that I want to do for my pact weapon, and I found the double-bladed scimitar, and I said, that's cool, I want to do that. But then it has all these weird rules with it because it's from some other setting, and my DM wouldn't let me. And I said, boo, that sucks. I started a new job shortly after where I literally, for all 8 hours of my day, could just listen to whatever I wanted to listen to, doing the most mindless thing you could ever imagine. And I figured, well, if it's from this Eberron setting, I should look into that. Maybe I'll like it. And then I found this podcast with these two guys that were talking a lot about Eberron and fucking around a little bit. And I listened to all 14 episodes they had, and then that takes us to where we are today.
Well, shit.
Look, you guys were one of the only sources of media I could find that did a good cover of Eberron and what it is.
Well, thank you. If I can be perfectly honest, I am really not happy with a lot of the stuff that's available for Eberron. There just is not enough of it.
No, there
Right.
isn't.
So,
It's like clearly a gap in the D&D world. They kind of I feel like they released it and then forgot about it.
And I'm
yeah,
also kind of like a professional hater. So if it's not the standard campaign setting, I want to know more about it.
Dave, how long were you playing D&D before you found Eberron?
A few years. Like it was a little bit. It was back when we were playing 3.5.
Dave says, I
And,
remember when they first released it.
Yeah, and well, Sean, I think, picked up the campaign setting, and I started looking through it, and I went, "Oh, this is all right. I like this. This is a little bit different. This is not high fantasy as we're used to, right? Let's explore this a little bit." And then it just kind of snowballed from there.
I was in that campaign with you, right? We discovered it at the same time.
Yeah, when I was Search the Warforged. I'm sure we'll talk more about him later.
Oh God, that was Dave. That would have been 2004.
Yeah, that was back before Sean's first daughter. Well,
Yeah,
yeah,
Yeah.
long time ago.
long time ago.
Yeah.
So, Scott, what initially drew you to Eberron?
As I wanted to look into more Eberron, I found your guys' 14 episodes on them, and I honestly loved it. You guys did a real good job of covering it all. I loved a lot of the campaign setting, how all of the plot hooks really just write themselves. And then I think that Eberron, unlike Faerun, handles magic existing the right way.
Preach.
If magic existed in real life, that's literally exactly how people would use it. They would industrialize it. Not this
Exactly.
weird, oh, no one's ever seen it. No, we're going to have magically automated farms. That's
Yep.
going to happen.
Yeah, people don't work with magic. They make magic work for them, right?
Exactly.
They harness it. They don't let it just, oh, we can use it for that. Like that's not how that's how people interact with magic or would.
Yeah.
Not that clearly they don't, but they would, they would harness it, they would industrialize it. You're absolutely right.
Oh my gosh, if I could cast Mage Hand, do you think I'd ever get up to go grab the remote ever again? No.
Like I gotta say, that's probably the biggest difference for me is in the Forgotten Realms, in most D&D, you have to learn the magic. In Eberron, you have the magic.
Well, and I would even disagree with that a little bit based off like how the mage writes and everything. Like they took the time to learn it, but it's like going to college to I'm going to college to be an accountant. Well, I would have learned how to use a mage hand to write for me, so I don't have to do that myself.
Yeah, the point is though that once the magic is discovered, it's like everybody gets access to it, right? Or instead of the wizards that hoard fourth level spells, it's like, hey, you know what? We've harnessed elementals. We have the magical ability to do that, so we're just going to make sure that society revolves around this now.
Well, how can I make the most money off of the fact I know how to do that, and I can use it to benefit the both of us?
It is capitalist D&D now that you point that out.
Yeah, you verbalized that, and I'd never really considered it before, but you are so freaking right.
Which again is why I like Eberron, because that is how, if someone here tomorrow discovered magic, that's how the world would go. We would learn how to profit the most off of magic existing.
You're right. Yep, yep. There's yeah, I got a lot on that. That's yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, you verbalized something that I've been thinking, and it's clicked now. Yeah, that's why I love this.
Which, and it makes the campaign setting more relatable, because I can sit around in the Forgotten Realms going, magic exists, you guys. Like, this problem is easily solved by magic.
You know, one of the questions that we always have in session zeros is, what do you want from D&D? Like, what do you want out of this? And you know, what's important to you? And I always say realism. You know, I want my games to make sense. I want it to feel real. And I get that that's a high fantasy thing, and you're probably not going to get that. But this does that so much better. It's got that real feel to it, you know?
Yeah, yeah. And then I guess one of the other things, well, I guess I'm getting ahead of myself because that's the next question. So
All right, Dave, what initially drew you to Eberron?
You know, I sat down with the book and I thought, you know, for a little background, I prefer smashy characters. I would rather hit something with a hammer or a sword than cast a spell at it. Now, I won't not play a caster, but I love to hit things more. So when I look in this book and I see, oh, adamantine armor, that's +8, that'll go well with all of my deflection modifiers and my, you know, all my other kinds of armor, because you know it's 3.5, you get like 7 different kinds of armor. And I'm like, oh well, you know, we can min-max this a little bit. Oh, and he gets spikes. Oh, so if I grapple and I crush with the grapple, I can like pierce him on my armor spikes that are built in, and then I can just turn my hands into swords as well. Like, this is as close as I'm going to get to playing Transformers in fantasy, and I love this. I want to do more of this. I want to learn more of this. Let's go.
I gotta
I mean,
say, I think Eberron, the origin of Eberron is that Keith Baker won a D&D contest, right? Where a bunch of people submitted, a bunch of fans of D&D submitted
yeah,
like all
they
of these.
said, hey, we want to publish a new campaign setting. Send in your settings and we'll publish the best.
And yeah, and Eberron won clearly. And then Keith Baker's been running with it since. But I think it came at the right time in 3.5 because a lot of the rules were established and it was min-maxy and like they'd figured out this system, but it wasn't so late in it where everything just felt like extra bullshit. Like they were drawing at straws to or grasping at straws in order to,
And whoever bought the most books had the best character.
yeah,
Yeah.
right. They were just trying to find a way to sell more books and it the power creep was just insane.
Well, 3.5 was made for power gamers, right? Like,
Yeah.
you want to sit down and do 1,200 damage on your turn? Yeah, go play 3.5.
Yeah,
Right?
and but beware because those dragons have 75,000 hit points right
Yeah,
away.
you're gonna die.
Yeah, it's insane. So, Scott, why do you love Eberron as much as you do?
Well, touched a little bit on it a few times. It's not the Forgotten Realms, so that's already a point in my book. It handles magic right, and I think one of the biggest things that I love about Eberron is if you want to learn all about Eberron, you need to buy one book. That's it. It's all
Or
contained
listen
in
to
that book.
14 episodes of a podcast.
Make it 15 now, right?
AS 50.
But no, how many books is all of the lore of the Forgotten Realms in? If I want to get a full picture of the Forgotten Realms, how many books do I have to buy?
They don't know what a full picture of the Forgotten Realms is, so they just keep making it up as they go.
Exactly. And that's another thing that I love about Eberron. It's right there. There it is. But also, we're going to leave so much of it so easy for you as the DM to change and modify and make what you want.
Yeah, the question marks that they left just gives you
Oh my
so much to
God.
work with.
Yes.
You could play Eberron your entire life and not even get to half of it, you
Oh
know?
yeah. Oh yeah. Easy. Easy. I do think that the last thing that I really love about Eberron is the two biggest themes of Eberron are my two biggest themes to play around in. You have your larger than life, just ridiculous things. I mean, if you play a full 1 to 20 Eberron campaign and you do not, someone does not fall off of an airship and you do not fight on top of the lightning rail, literally get your money back. Like what are you doing? If in 20 levels those two things do not happen, get your money back. Well, this is not worth it.
Hmm.
But then they throw in all this like extreme mystery, subterfuge, like all of this noir stuff. It just makes me want to wear a trench coat, a fedora, and listen to some saxophone jazz.
So I just looked it up. 'Cause you're like, yeah, you can find it all in one book. I just looked it up. There were 21 3.5 Eberron books.
Yeah,
There
but
were
you didn't
five
need
fourth edition. Fifth edition had the Wayfinder's Guide, which was the PDF that they released a year before they actually released Rising from the Last War. And then I didn't know this. There are two D&D Adventure Leagues storylines in fifth edition. One of them was released like it's 12 little adventures that were released with the Wayfinder's Guide to Eberron. It's called Embers of the Last War. And then when Rising from the Last War came out, they released an ongoing Adventure League storyline called The Oracle of War, which actually takes place in the Mournland.
Which
And
again, if you don't go to the Mournland, get your money back.
yeah,
Yep.
and like it takes you from level 1 to 20 apparently. And then of course there's all the third party stuff that Keith Baker just absolutely throws out. Do you guys know there are video games for Eberron?
No,
Tell me
I
more.
literally tell me more.
Pulling up Steam right now.
Dragon Shard from 2005 is a real-time strategy game for PCs. And
Okay.
there was an MMO for Dungeons and Dragons Online back in 2006 that I think is probably long dead.
Yeah, probably.
It was initially set in Eberron, but has slowly become more Forgotten Realms-ish.
Boo, tomato, tomato, tomato.
So actually it looks like it got a re-release in 2012. It might still be around. Anyway, yeah. Dave, why do you
No,
love
like
Eberron so much?
Um, it checks all of those boxes. It does everything that standard D&D didn't. It was a new look at things. Like sure we had we played a lot of Greyhawk originally,
Yeah.
and there was still some dabbling in Forgotten Realms. There was still there was still other campaign settings around, but they were still that high fantasy of Greyhawk. Like it was still the same thing, just a different world, right?
It's all wizards and crystal balls and knights in shining armor.
Yeah, it's mages and barbarians, right? And this was so much more than that, and it kind of showed me that it was um possible to have the same thing reskinned differently, and it wasn't very different from what I was already doing, so I didn't really have to learn much more because there was a steep learning curve for 3.5, right? It took a lot to get into that. I remember sitting in my living room going, "What does AC mean?" And like trying to figure it all out, right? But
There was a lot of math, and there was always new math coming out.
yeah, it just kind of made it a little, there was just layers of it all, right? But Eberron just kind of simplified it all, and it was stories that I really liked. It took some simple things that I was familiar with and kind of made it interesting. And I mean, to be brutally honest, it was probably the people I was playing with as well. Sean, I think being stoked on it probably made me a little more stoked on it. We were all happy to be playing it. It wasn't just me.
Yeah, and our buddy Brad, not the Brad that's on the podcast now,
Oh
but
yeah, Brad.
Brad at the time was all about theory crafting, and he loved Eberron for that.
Yeah, I remember we used to stand outside and just like talk and spitball things that would, be possible for hours at a time. We
Mhm.
wouldn't even be playing the game, we'd just be talking about it.
I mean, I'm
So,
kind of the same way, so maybe that's why I like Eberron so much.
Hmm.
well, that leads me to my next question. Scott, would you rather be a player or DM in Eberron?
Oh, 100% DM. I mean, this setting itself gives just on a silver platter hands you all of your plot hooks. Like it does it just gets the creative juices flowing when you take the time to read, oh, these are all of the like the dragon marked houses and these are all of the things that they're responsible for. But also, here's an entire table of rumors of the bad things that they might do. how do I not just take those and run with it?
Dave?
Oh, I spent since you asked that question, I'm still trying to figure out my answer to that. I want to play in it because I want to explore what someone else has created in the way of a storyline for this. I want to see that unfold in front of me, but I also feel like I'm probably the only person I know that knows the setting deep enough to get there, you know?
I can relate. I have made all of my players become familiar with Eberron because I want to play in this setting.
Right, like I've had so many ideas for incredible campaign settings for this, because I know it so well. But I think because I know it so well, I would be kind of, I think being a player looks great, but I think DM's probably better for it, you know. I don't think I'd get as much out of it as a player.
I can relate.
I would say that I have read every single one of the like every page of the Eberron book at least 3 times. I feel very confident in it, but even still, I think that my Eberron knowledge is probably 60% of what you know, Dave.
Yeah, because it's more than that, right? Like you were saying, there was 21 books for 3.5, and I haven't read all of them, but I've read some of them. And it actually kind of makes it difficult for me sometimes when I was like making all of my show notes for the little for the touring the multiverse. I had a real hard time going, is this fifth edition or is this 3.5? I can't remember. But there's just so much material out there, and I got really deep into some of the weirder stuff on it, like going into Zendrick and Argonason and like exploring the other continents of Corvair because there's 12 plus countries on Corvair, and if you explore one of them, you can spend an entire campaign, right?
You can be
But
pretty certain that there are 13. Whenever you're looking for anything in Eberron, there's 13. Because there are 13 moons of Eberron, there are 13 other realms in Eberron. There are
yeah, but do we count Drome? Like,
yeah,
so that's why
there's
it's 12 plus, right?
well, no, like specifically 13 distinct different places on Corvair. I think there are 13 different like major islands slash continents. It's always 13. And the reason is my favorite stupid reason of all time for anything. And that is Keith Baker, who writes it, leaned into the baker's dozen over and over and over again, which is, of course, the number 13.
Are you
So
shitting me? All right, I've changed my opinion of the Eberron campaign setting. No, I'm kidding. I love it even more now. That's great. Yeah.
um, Scott, what piece of non-D&D media scratches the Eberron itch the best for you?
So when I was reading these questions, this one I was struggling with a little bit. I don't know because Eberron's its own unique slice of like an experience. I was reading these questions, kind of sharing them with my boyfriend as I was prepping, and he instantly said Futurama, which is my favorite TV show. Which, you know what? I'm okay with that answer. It has a lot of the larger than life, just weird, silly adventures that you will find in Eberron.
Yeah, you know what? That's a really good comparison.
Yeah, I was struggling with this one and I read it to him and he's immediately said Futurama. And the more I thought about it, you know what? He's onto something.
Yeah,
Dave, what scratches your itch?
nothing. I genuinely, I mean, now that Scott mentions it, yeah, I can see Futurama, but I don't, I think that's what I liked about it so much is it was so unique. There wasn't anything like it. Where else can you be riding dinosaurs and then, hanging out with a bunch of lycanthropes and then, over here in the Demon Wastes, but now we've got Dragon Island over here, and don't forget about this psionic, dream people up there, but
Well, and don't forget that that living fireball wants to come have a conversation with you.
right? Like I don't think anything checks even half of those boxes. Like there is something for everyone in Eberron, and I don't think anything else. Like, yeah, Futurama, that's about as close as I think you're gonna get.
I'm gonna say, if I can be perfectly honest, I think the Dresden Files tick some of the boxes. I just like the
Oh,
mixing of fantasy and like
but it wasn't good though. Like,
Ouch.
like I love the books. Like I'm a big fan of the books, but the show just they
I never saw the show. I read part of the books and I went, yeah, this I can see where this is a little bit of like inner city magic as well. And like magic has been repurposed to check boxes and serve purposes instead of it just being a like Lord
Yeah,
of the Rings, where it's just this weird mystical force that most people don't have access to,
yeah, you're right.
right?
Because there's also like the different levels of reality in the Dresden Files. Like you can go to the Sealy Court, you can go
Yeah.
to the Feywild, you can do all these other things. Interesting.
The other one that stood out to me as being very Eberron was Final Fantasy VI and Final Fantasy VII, because magic is very much industrialized. You show up the opening scene of Final Fantasy VI, you walk in mechs. But later on, you're riding, giant ostriches or, chocobos across the freaking open plains to go find the living fireball. At one point, you end up fighting an octopus monster in an opera house. Like, it's absolutely batshit crazy the way that Eberron is in Final Fantasy VI. Final
I
Fantasy VII is that
never
way too.
played any Final Fantasies.
I think
Neither
that
have I.
if
Yeah.
if you can get past the old school graphics
Oh, and I
and
can't.
you have some patience, because they're not as fast as today's video games, then you'll find Eberron storylines in there for sure. Scott, what's your most memorable experience during a campaign in Eberron?
So, unfortunately, I have not gotten to play nearly as much Eberron as I have wanted. There's been a total of 3 campaigns I've done in Eberron. One of them I was a player, two I was a DM. Very first one I went to run, I invited some other people in, and they literally ghosted me, which is why I play with my roommates now. And then the other two fizzled out because I went through not the best breakup, and that'll break up a table.
Yeah.
Um, I
Truth.
do think my favorite, well, there's two of them from the campaign I was running. So I based it out of Desolate in the Demon Wastes.
Mhm.
Got a lot to play with there. I had them try to, they essentially wanted to build their own cult. So I had them start, yeah, you know what? Sure, we can work with that. Uh,
Absolutely.
I started them off in Desolate, and they were trying to amass powerful allies. So I had like a little divination halfling lady tell them that she was having some dreams of a giant power in the west with immense heat. What do you guys think they ran into?
Oh, I'm assuming they went to the Mournland. Did they witness what was it called, the cataclysm or whatever?
No, we went to a volcano and found a fire giant.
Oh.
Love it.
Literally a giant power with immense heat, and I think I included like the sounds of banging metal or something like that. They ran into a fire giant. They had completely blown away. They had no idea that was even coming.
Hit it in broad daylight, hey? Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah.
But then when they went back to Desolate, I had their entire town was under the influence of a incubus. So watching them figure out what is going on here and then figuring out it's an incubus, they hated that guy, by the way. It was so satisfying when they got to kill him. They were so happy I let them do it.
Were they under his influence as well?
No, because I had him roll in with his people and then take over the town while they were on their way to the volcano with the fire giant.
Right on.
So they come back to town and someone else has taken, the lead role. And they said, hold on, first of all, fuck you. That was, I was supposed to be in charge. And then they found out that they got to kill him.
Oh, I'm sure they loved it. It sounds like a lot of fun. You know, the Demon Waste is one part of the world that I never really explored too much.
That's why I wanted to do that campaign in the Demon Waste. I figured if I do anything else anywhere else, we're never going to make it out that far. And if you want to start a cult, what better place than the weird shit that goes on in the Demon Waste?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Dave, what was your most memorable experience during a campaign in Eberron?
Uh, I can't pick just one.
Okay,
Well,
but
fortunately for you, I actually kind of did too. So you get to do two then.
Damn. I think when I first started playing like my first campaign in Eberron, and I was playing a Warforged, and the DM at the time, Sean, introduced my character. I found an item that was like a small round ball, and it turned out it was a docent. And I wasn't familiar with Warforged components at that point. And the docent came with like a second personality, like another intellect, right?
As they do.
Right. And it opened my eyes to how much more there was here. And I think that kind of really was, the most memorable point for me. It was just that right there made it so much better. I don't know.
Just that moment of, oh this is what you can do.
Yeah, like I downloaded an upgrade. Like, excuse me? Like,
but also this upgrade is another being.
that is so badass, right? It was, I don't know, I don't know, that right there, it was the perfect Eberron moment for me, and it just kind of stuck with me. My second favorite was when I rolled 3 nat 20s in a row and killed a player because I was the DM. And we were fighting on top of a lightning rail, and he fell off and left a giant crater. That was pretty fun. But
That's a 3.5 mechanic is the 3 in a row. That intense crit.
That's
look,
happened twice in my 20 years of playing.
Yeah, if that ever happens in my campaign, I don't care. The dice have spoken.
The
This
player
is
was
happening.
so chill with it. He was like, you know what? It's fine. I'm not even mad.
You hit a 1 in 8,000 chance. Here you go. Yes.
Yeah.
This is what happens.
Yeah.
So, Dave, do you know what the definition of the word docent is? Because I ran across it out in the wild, and I'm like, wait a minute, isn't that an Eberron word? It's a real word.
No.
It is a person who acts as a guide, like you would expect in like a museum or a gallery of some sort or something like that. Like a professional, like I'm just this font of information. I will walk around with you and explain what you're looking at.
Okay.
I mean, that's exactly what it does in Eberron, isn't it?
Yeah, pretty much. And more. So that was a little neat. I ran across it first in Eberron and then was surprised.
Yeah, I think the way that we used it, we took some liberties and kind of made it our own. It wasn't necessarily by the book, but
no, he was super powered. There are docents in 5th edition. They're not nearly as powerful or interesting as they were in previous editions.
Oh, I looked at it. I was like, oh, all right, yeah, okay, fine.
Yeah, they're almost like a hyper intelligent and very opinionated familiar, right?
That you install into yourself.
Yeah, that becomes a part of you.
All right, but if mine says, hey, listen, I'm quitting.
Where was yours, Dave, when you got it installed? It was in your chest, right?
Yeah. Yeah, cool. Like right front and center. It was my power core.
Makes you look like Iron Man.
You know it.
We get a lot of unique details in Eberron, but there are a few distinct features that really stand out that makes Eberron unique, like the Warforged Colossus and Artificers and Dragon Shards, living spells and elemental vehicles like the Lightning Rail and airships. Like, what else is something that you think is clearly and definitively Eberron?
Sorry, thinking. Because those absolutely do it. But I do think, how can you say this is clearly and definitively Eberron and not include the Dragon Mark houses?
Right.
Yeah. You have to have those in. I mean, they won't say it, but I believe they truly run the world. And that's why I like to paint them as my villains, because there's gonna be not so cool things that they do.
They are kind of like the Illuminati.
Yeah. No, the 12 that run the Dragon Mark houses, they are the Illuminati. They run the world, the 12 of them.
Dave, do you have anything that just screams Eberron besides the ones that I listed?
All of the animals that the mage rights mess around with, like all the aberrations that they make and like magically infused creatures and stuff like that. That to me is a very Eberron thing, because one of the things that I love to do when I'm running monsters is kind of make them a little funny, so that when my players are playing, they're not just going, "Oh, that's a basilisk. Oh, that's a beholder." You know, that they don't know what they've got. You know, there's something a little bit different about it, and I thought that the idea of the mage rot animals was kind of interesting.
Yeah, as you said in the original episodes, when Dave goes, "Oh, I know exactly," or not your Dave, when Dan goes, "Hey, I know exactly what this animal is. It does this and this," and then you just make it breathe fire at him.
Exactly.
Yeah, you just have to homebrew for experienced players, and as I continue to play and all of my players get more and more experience, I'm like, okay, how am I ever going to use goblins again in an interesting way?
You know what you just said? You got to homebrew for experienced players, and I think one of the things Eberron is pre-built homebrew for this, right? Like it really.
And that's how the campaign setting started. It was a homebrew world. And I really like how Eberron kind of shows you what you can do with your homebrew.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why. It's because it came from just such a passion, right? Like you know that the person, not the team of people doing this originally, like really loved it, right?
Oh yeah, it shows.
And there are a ton of ideas in there, an absolute fucking ton. There's so many different kinds of themes and tones in Eberron. They're often just like smashed together. You got dragon and giant continents, bombastic high adventure, noir in the belly of a metropolis, forgotten lore and ancient mysteries, alien possession, magic punk, post-war espionage, defense against encroaching ancient evils, post-cataclysmic fallout, brewing warfare
Shit, you want
between
to do pirates? Go
intertwined
over to the Lazar
nobles.
Principalities. Like,
Yeah, you got a species built for war in a post-war landscape. What stands out to you as being the definitive part or parts of an Eberron campaign that you would run? What are the big themes and tones that you need to hit?
I mean, you have to hit those just silly, over the top moments. You're having a fight on your airship and now it's crashing. You have to have your fighting on the lightning rail. You have to go exploring the Mornland. You just have to have those big, just over the top moments. And of course, you can't throw them in literally every session, but if you're not hitting at least one just big over the top moment like every level, I don't feel like you're using the setting for what it can be at that point.
you're right, and it doesn't even have to be the focal point of the session, right? Like it can be as much as your adventurers are traveling and they need a place to long rest for the night. Well, they found a broken down Warforged Colossus. They're never going to get it to run again, but you know what? They can go do their long rest in there, lock it down, and explore the inside a little bit, right? Like it can just be flavor, you know?
What kind of adventures do you want to run though? Like what's the big theme? Are like the theme that's really popping off in my campaigns are life versus death and order versus chaos. Those are the big things, right? And we talk about chaos all the time in my campaign.
Well, you have to with Dan at the table.
You and he were throwing candy back and forth across the table. I can't let Dan and Dave sit beside each other. Otherwise, they just start poking each other like their ADHD combined goes nuts. So now it has become throwing candy and derailing sessions. It's absolutely bonkers. And tomorrow we don't have Megan there. She's on vacation in Hawaii, and so she's not going to be there to lock their shit down. It's going to be abject chaos.
Yeah, Megan gets us in line. Yeah.
Yeah.
If anyone would, it does not surprise me that Megan can do it.
Yeah, she's the party whip. Yeah.
Yeah. She gives out the metaphorical spankings with just an eyebrow. But the actual like high fantasy of the Forgotten Realms, do you feel like it's still a part of Eberron? Or do you feel like we've gone completely away from wizards and towers?
No,
I
I
mean,
feel like regular D&D is, 700 AD and Eberron is, 2000 AD. They're not the same, you know?
yeah, I mean, sure, you still have your swords and your knights wearing your armor, but we're in a different ball game.
Would you say it like the themes are tied to different locations on the map? Like, for example, if you want high adventure and like you want to go explore a jungle, you've got to go into not like the Eldian Reaches won't do it. You've got to go into Kabara or you've got to go to Zendrik. Like, there's different themes in different areas.
Yeah, no, I think that's pretty accurate. But I do think that a lot of Eberron was built off of taking those traditional high fantasy themes and just giving them a real good twist.
I agree, 100%. And
Yep.
they will even take the same theme and twist it in different ways in different parts of
Oh,
Eberron.
absolutely. And I think that's one thing that I really loved about learning Eberron is just because we've seen these themes in everything that's high fantasy. They use these same themes and they've just used them over and over and over. And then Eberron goes, I see what you did with that, but I'm gonna take that idea and do it very differently over here. But then on the other side of the map, it's the same thing done in a completely different way.
Yeah, you're not locked into one location. You can do the same thing in a few different spots, right?
Hmm.
It just felt refreshing to see those themes spun on their heads a little bit.
We have, speaking of geography and where we're going, we've got a country full of dinosaur riding halflings, a country probably run by a vampire lord, although that's the worst kept secret in Eberron. Distant islands of ancient proud elves, one of goblinoids who are banding together, one of pirates, a couple of countries filled with ancient evils like the demon wastes and the shadow marches. We've got a couple of wild, like wilderness areas, one toxic region half destroyed by a magical calamity, one where all the monsters are starting to build a civilization. Not to mention the Roar holds where the dwarves are digging, Zendrick where the giants quietly brood, or Argonison, which is where the dragons rule. And then you include on top of that Sharn, the city of towers, and Argont, which was the flying fortress. If you can only visit 3 locations in a homebrew campaign, where are you going in Eberron?
Well, I am playing the current campaign that I am playing now, because when we watched the little trailer for it, it was a circus and dinosaurs, and my player said, then that's the decision. There's no other option. So I have to go to the Talenta Plains. Halflings are my favorite race, and dinosaurs. It just makes sense. The other ones, I don't know. I do want to look into what Drome has to offer. The Daughters of Sorakel have so much I want to do with. As for the third one, I feel like you have to include Sharn. A campaign needs a moment where you have to go to Sharn, even to learn something, to find someone. But I want Sharn to be more of an in and out. I don't want to do a full Sharn campaign. You easily could,
Yeah, you can get stuck there easily.
but just with all of the different areas in Sharn, it has a full country's worth in one city, and it's very easy to mix it up,
Yeah,
especially for
absolutely.
players that aren't as I know this very well. If you're trying to introduce players to Eberron, I don't think Sharn's the best place to hang out.
No, in fact, like there's so much going on here. When we sat down to originally plan touring the multiverse, I think we originally planned for like 10 episodes. And then I got into it, I was like, no, this is going to be at least 12. And no, it got even bigger, right? And like I started getting into Sharn, and it's like, no, this is going to be more than a one part episode, right? Because it was two on Sharn, wasn't it?
Yeah, we ended up doing 2, and it's such a crazy cross section. There's so much shit going on in Sharn.
Yeah.
Dave, what 3 places would you have to go here?
Sharn clearly is got to
Yeah.
be has to be one of them. And then the other ones, that's rough. I want to go to Zilargo. I think I want to see what the gnomes got going on. I think that'll just be whimsical. I don't know.
Until you have a run in with the Shadow Police.
Yeah, but you know, I think it'd be okay. It might be okay. It sounds like I could have some fun there. Other than that though, geez, probably like the Eldine Reaches. I want to go see the forest.
Want to go talk to that ancient druid that's actually is he a treant or is he just a tree?
Yeah,
Just a tree.
that's
Just
what I
a
want
pine
to do.
tree.
Yeah.
I want to go reveal the secrets of the wild.
Yeah,
Amazing to me that
it doesn't surprise me that you want to go see the Towering Wood.
Yeah.
I am absolutely shocked that neither of you said the Mournland.
Yeah, I literally, as Dave was speaking, I was like, I didn't say the Moorland.
I like yeah, it's I think there's too much risk there.
I also think that that's where you're going for your tier 4, right?
Oh,
Like,
absolutely. I want to send them in for a brief stint in like tier 2, just to be like, just to mess with them. Send them on an in and out, a day or two, but on their way out, the Mournland starts warping things and it takes them a whole week to get out. And then send
so
them back for tier 4 when they're ready for it.
I'm gonna
Really ready for it.
yeah, no one's ready for the
No.
Mournland. I'm going to shift a little bit because one of the things we mentioned very, very briefly, but is such a major feature of Eberron is artificers. We get 4 different kinds in 5th edition: alchemists, artillerists, armorers, and battlesmiths. What's your favorite thing about artificers? Or do you not even care about them? Are you interested in other parts of Eberron?
I mean, they're not my biggest go-to when I think of Eberron, but they come down to artificers are the reason why magic is handled the way I think magic should be handled. They're the ones industrializing it. Um, like that is my favorite flavor wise, is that they are the reason that magic is the way it should be. Mechanically, artificers brought us the way to make weapon attacks with intelligence. You got your two options there. I mean, we had Shillelagh for wisdom, you have a Hexblade Warlock for charisma, and they brought in intelligence. Although no, the Bladesinger Wizard doesn't give you intelligence, does it? Or is that just a very popular multi-class?
Uh, yeah, wizards are intelligence based as well. The wizards were the only intelligence based casters until artificers came by.
Well, and the Bladesinger Wizard did not give you an option to make weapon attacks with intelligence, did they?
I don't remember. It has been over 100 episodes since we've touched on. I don't even
I
know if I was
don't
on that episode.
think so. I like that the artificers give you that you can use intelligence to make your attacks, which leaves us that we just need something to let us use Constitution for attacks, and then every stat has an option.
I'm looking it up now. But while I'm doing that, Dave, what's your favorite thing about artificers?
Like I was saying before, I don't particularly dabble with magic too much. But the thing I really liked about the Artificers in 3.5 was what all the funky shit you could do with the infusions and the wands. And like even a simple Scorching Ray wand could be twinned, maximized, and empowered with meta magic feats. And all of a sudden you're just like blowing 50 charges, but you're doing crazy damage with them. Like they were just so easy to break in 3.5. And like you want a power game, Artificers. They are great. Um, but again, I never really played with them too much on my own.
To answer your question, Scott, about the Blade Singers, you get a thing at second level which allows you to add your intelligence to your AC, and also you get a bonus to Constitution saves that adds your intelligence as well. That's how intelligence comes into play with their.
But you still need probably dexterity to attack with your weapons.
It's strength normally. I would say so.
Well, unless
Probably.
you're doing like a short sword.
Yeah. If you get a finesse weapon.
Yeah, which I would absolutely want with a wizard.
Yeah. Do you become proficient with any sort of weapons with a Blade Singer?
I think you get to pick a weapon. Um, do, do, do,
It,
do,
yeah,
do.
that's it. It's you get proficiency with light armor and one type of one-handed melee weapon of your choice.
Yeah, which I would just go finesse, and then you just mage armor yourself and go to town.
Yeah.
Enter Blade Song, and it's gonna be good.
So I did a little bit more digging, and as much as we say that Rising to the Last War is the 1/5 edition Eberron book, there are two other ones that Keith Baker has been publishing independently. They're called Exploring Eberron and Chronicles of Eberron. And within them, we get a number of new subclasses for 5th edition. We get, for Artificers, the Forge Adept and the Maverick. For Bard, we get College of Fury and College of the Dirge Singer. For Clerics, we get the Mind Domain, which I assume is based on the Quarry and Kalishtar kind of feel, but
It would have
also
to be.
we get the Aspiration Domain. Druids get Circle of the Forged, which I haven't read them. I'm so curious. Monks get Way of the Living Weapon, and then rogues get Dark Petitioner, which just screams all of the House Demir, the espionage, right? So, what's a class or subclass that you think should be added in a hypothetical next Eberron book? Like, what's the homebrew character you want to build?
Well, you said we were gonna roll initiative every 5 questions. We're halfway through. Should we just start with that?
Let's do that.
All right, I'll use a different D20 and see how it fares.
All right.
That's a nat 1.
18.
Yeah, there we go. This feels like a proper episode. Dave.
Yes. Subclass that I think should be added. Now, one thing that 3.5 did a little bit different was we did have subclasses that tailored more towards races. So I played a Warforged Juggernaut. It was a Warforged only class, and I loved the hell out of that. They need to bring it back.
It was so fighty. It was so min-maxy fighty. You were
Yep.
the best fighter and barbarian.
Literal tank.
Yes.
It was the tankiest tank that ever tanked aside from an actual tank, right? Like it nothing compared. It is so good, which is probably why they haven't come up with some sort of equivalent, just because it did it so well.
Isn't that just the problem when you do it a little too well that you take it away from everything else?
It really fit that like late stage power creep that that 3.5 had. Like as a fighter, you were still mixing it in there. You get your feats, you could get whirlwind attack, which allows you to hit anything you're adjacent to. And then you get something with like a 10-foot reach weapon, like a chain, like a spike chain. Like you just it gets crazy, you know. And then
It's
what
wild to me that we didn't get a stat block for a Warforged Juggernaut. We got the Titan, but we didn't get a Juggernaut, and that was just bizarre to me.
yeah, no, that one.
Scott, do you have a subclass
So
that you would create for Eberron?
I don't know anything about any of the subclasses that Keith Baker added in his other books. So if it's covered, oops. But I want to see something very Sorakel inspired. I want the weird, creepy dream stuff, a lot of just mind kerfuckery.
Like I know that we have like the Hexblade Warlock. That doesn't really like Archfey because they're hags. That doesn't really do it. I'm trying to think. Yeah, I almost want like a wizard subclass that's clearly inspired by hags. Oh, now I know. You guys make me want to run an Eberron campaign.
Good.
Dave, we get 4 new playable races in 5th edition. Changelings, Kalashtar, Shifters, and Warforged. I know the answer to this already. Which one interests you the most as a player?
You don't know the answer to this already. It's Kalashtar. I would absolutely love to play a Kalashtar. I haven't ever really dabbled with Kalashtar at all. And I think that the mind and psionic side of 3.5 is 100% underutilized. And I don't think I'm ever really going to get to explore that too much, and that interests me the most as a player. However, in the games we play, I'm just going to be a Warforged.
Why?
Oh, they hit good.
Fair.
Yeah.
Scott?
I honestly am gonna also go with Warforged. I mean, you have all these different races and everything. You have your traditional high fantasy. They're adding a lot more animal-based ones. I just want to be a robot. I want to have my sword hidden inside of my arm, and my arm changes into my sword, and I just want to hit shit. It hit good.
Right? It hit good.
It hit good. I mean,
Yeah.
as a DM, I'm going to mess with every single one of my players with changelings. They're going to talk to 5 different people who is just one person.
I did that in my last campaign, but it was one of the player characters. We introduced Charlie way late in the campaign, and I introduced 3 NPCs to them first, and each one of those was Charlie's character in disguise.
Yep.
And so as we played out, like we introduced his character, and then we played out the next 3-4 sessions, and they kept, oh, we got to go talk to this person, and he's like, no, you don't. I am that person, and it was funny to watch them be like, how many characters are you?
Yep. See, that's what I want to do as a DM. But I know if I'm a player with a changeling, I'm not gonna do it right. Unless I have that moment to set it up with my DM, like you were saying, you guys set it up.
Yeah, coming in as a mastermind rogue with all the disguises and stuff at level 18 was an opportunity to do that, right?
Well, you can't say no to that. You have to do that.
Exactly. Thank you for this gift. I am going to have fun. So, we talked about which ones are your favorites of the 4, Changeling, Kalashtar, Shifter, and Warforged. Dave, which one interests you the least as a player?
Probably the changelings. Like, I'm not going to ever use it. There's 100 ways to disguise yourself in D&D, and I never use any of them. Why would I pick a race that focuses on it? It just doesn't, like, at least with shifters, you get some neat claw stuff, like I want to, it's scratch good. But changelings, they focus on a part of the game that I don't play. So
Fair. Scott?
Probably the shifters. Changelings I would love, but I won't ever get to do right. Kalashtar have the cool, weird dream stuff, but you'd need a good DM for that. Shifters are what I would love to have it hit good, but it hit good after you spend the time to set it up. I just want to hit good from square one like the Warforged do.
I mean, that's fair. Honestly, for the longest time, I thought shifters were relatively useless because I was sitting there going, if I want a wild shape, I'll be a druid. Like, what am I doing here?
Well, and
We also have Path of the Beast Barbarian as well, which gets you a lot of the shit that shifters can do. However, we just recorded an episode focused entirely on shifters, hasn't come out at the time of this recording, where I sat down and went over it with Megan and Casey. We found a lot of fun shit to do with shifters. but it wasn't very apparent to me at first. Like I had to spend 2 hours prepping and then 2 hours talking about it to find like, oh, okay, I get it now.
Okay, I'll have to give it a listen because when I think about it, one of the shifter options is, oh, let me spend a bonus action to get what, +1 AC? The Warforged has that baked in.
I mean, yes, they do.
I mean, you don't have to spend any action. You just have to put your armor on and you're good to go.
Um, I got a question for you guys. Which Dragon Marked house do you think best suits you in real life? Do you need a refresher? Because it's a long list.
You should.
Why not?
Okay, so the Dragon Mark houses, I'm gonna do it based on the Dragon Marks themselves, okay? Instead of going through the names because they're just nonsense bullshit fantasy names like Thrashk and Vidalis and Jurassic. People are gonna lose track pretty quickly. But the different dragon marks that you get give you different powers. And then there's the mark of detection, finding, handling, healing, hospitality, making, passage, scribing, sentinel, shadow, storm, warding, and the one that's gone now, death. You also have aberrant dragon marks as well. But like if we ignore the mark of death and the aberrant dragon marks. If you look at the other basic 12, which one do you think suits you the best in like the person you are?
Well, death and aberrant don't have houses, so they don't really fit for this question.
Death did. It was the House Vole.
Well, it did.
Yeah, it did. The rumor now in fifth edition is that it's still there, but it's run in secret in the what's the country run by the undead?
Karnath.
Yeah,
The
Karnath.
Karnath. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so because the quote unquote leader, which no one is supposed to know is a vampire, is the final descendant of House Vole and is also kind of moderately engaged with the Blood of Vole cult.
Yeah, I was gonna say the blood of Vol exists. They didn't really go away.
Yeah. But anyway, Dave, I think you're up first. Which Dragon Mark?
I don't know. Making. I like being crafty. I
Of
like.
course you would go House Cannith because you would have destroyed the Mournland.
Yeah.
That is
Oops.
on brand. Nobody listening knows how much you love fireworks.
Yeah, I like tinkering with stuff. You give me raw materials and I will make something cool. 50% chance it blows up. Right? Like
At
it's
least Dave, and again, you're Dave. At least Dan has a better success rate with what he makes, right?
uh,
Yeah, I have many comments.
yeah, yep.
So,
But I think that just like if I was gonna use magic, I would want it to be crafting and making. Not I wouldn't care about I'm not going to be the house of hospitality. That's not my thing. I'm not going to use these magical things that I got. I don't want to do that. It's I don't know. I want to create.
I'm a little surprised that you didn't go with either passage or like finding because those
Passage would
ones are out in the wilderness. They're out in the world. They're moving.
Passage does speak to me as well. Like I love being like I mean one of my favorite things to do is go out and
Well, weren't you an admiral briefly
uh
of many ships?
well there was a flotilla. I was almost a captain too one time. Like it was I'm actually a deputy of Northern British Columbia. I was deputized by an RCMP officer actually. Yeah.
Yeah, which is not something to be proud of in 2024. I don't think
Oh, I
it's
guess
really
yeah.
cool when it happened.
Yeah, it was great when it happened 20 years ago. Yeah.
Scott, do you have a dragon marked house or a dragon mark that speaks to you?
Oh yeah, of all the houses, the one that I would be more personally aligned with is, of course, the one that Dave said no to, the hospitality.
Okay, why?
I am a chatty little bitch. Like, I want the drama. I want to know what's going on. Let's chit chat. I would be the bartender who has all of the quest answers for you. You just gotta chit chat a little bit, and I'll tell you what I know, but you tell me what I know, what you know. And then when I need something, I'll call in that favor. Remember when I told you exactly what you needed to know? Now tell me what I need to know.
Fucking, you know what? I'm not surprised at all.
And I love halflings.
You are here for the tea.
I literally like, let's sit down and let's have some tea and tell me what's up.
Besides the dragon marked houses, there are quite a few other noble houses. There's political organizations, there's religious institutions in Eberron. What other organization out there interests you the most as a dungeon master?
Dave, that's you.
I know there's not one thing that does.
Scott's getting a look behind the scenes. Every time we ask Dave a question on any episode, I cut out the long silence and him going,
yeah, I don't know.
I'm gonna here. I'll give the Dave answer.
I'm so wondering.
All of them.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Like it's not that easy. I don't know, probably the Dark Six. I like the idea of I don't know, just that under like the
Now, I don't remember. Is Dark Six the evil pantheon, or is that the overlords that are in Kyber? It's the pantheon, isn't it? You guys hear me?
yeah, it's your evil gods. I kind of like that idea, I don't know, just the whole idea of the Eberron being on layers. Like you've got the sky, the material world, and then inside Kyber, like you've got like the different areas of, and this being from deep and dark, and like I don't know, just maybe I don't know. I want to do it all. It's hard to have one answer.
They're a little Cthulhuid too, aren't they? Like the ancient elder gods.
I don't know. I don't think they're quite like that. I mean, I imagine if they're like the sovereign host, it's kind of just the one being that embodies this ideal the most, and they, in theory, kind of could be replaced if someone else was embodying that more.
Okay.
Or am I just completely goofy and wrong?
I honestly don't know enough about the Dark Six.
No, they're really just like the opposite of the sovereign host, right? Like they're the dark to the light, right? But I find that most campaigns focus on light and not really the dark, and this is kind of a unique setting to focus on that. I don't know.
Well, and like the Dark Six, all six of them are the something, like the Devourer, the Fury, the Mockery, the Shadow. So
Yeah.
they're not like a definitive, this is the god. They kind of have their pseudonym that they go by.
Except for possibly the Traveler, which I remember being just kind of like weirdly neutral, but is not part of the sovereign host.
Yeah, but still, if I were to pull the rug out and say that the Traveler's actually like four different people sharing this one divine pantheon, like all the divine powers, that would not surprise me.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. Yeah. What other organization interests you, Scott?
Order of the Emerald Claw.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did a 3-part campaign. Like it was 3 separate campaigns that all kind of flowed one into the other, and it was all about the Emerald Claw. A lot of fun.
Oh yeah, they will be a bad guy in my campaign.
I am shocked that you guys didn't say the Sisters of Sorakel or any of the other
Look,
like.
the Daughters of Sorakel are
Yeah,
a
the
good
daughters.
option, but I will be using the Order of the Emerald Claw. I may not use the Daughters of Sorakel in everyone, but I will use the Emerald Claw.
So actually, that brings us to the next question: is who's your favorite villain or villains of Eberron?
I mean, Daughters of Sorkel. They're built right in. They're great villains. You can kind of figure out what you want to do with them because there's a lot there, but there's still a lot you can do, right? Like, are they the ones behind what's going on in Drome?
Well, I mean, they're in charge of Drome, so yeah, I'd guess that they're.
I thought that they had their own little area, and it was kind of like a Drome didn't really have established leaders. I thought it was more
Well, I
like
thought
a.
that they were the ones leading Drome. Okay, fine. Let me look it up real quick.
Oh,
No, Scott, you're right, because I did a deep dive on Hags. I remember the Hags episodes. So we did 4 episodes on them. And I
Okay.
did a deep dive into the Daughters of Sorakel, and they do run the country, but there's like one of them is the face, one of them is like the muscle, and then one of them is just like a weird mystery person that nobody really interacts with. And everyone's waiting for Sorakel to come back.
Oh,
Right.
my bad.
So, yeah, there's just so many cool organizations and shit to play with. I gotta say, I need more stuff about the Lazar Principalities. I want to know what the pirate shit's going on.
I get it. You can just get pirate stuff in the Forgotten Realms, so I want that other different stuff in Eberron.
My thing is though that they're not powered by elementals. Like the pirate stuff you can get in Forgotten Realms, there's actually precious little outside of space or Spelljammer. When you've got all of the like adventures and pirates and stuff for fifth edition, it's all in Ghosts of Saltmarsh, which is Greyhawk. And like nobody ever talks about the fact that it's a Greyhawk setting.
I didn't even know it was in Greyhawk.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
didn't know. Yeah.
So I just think that you're getting into the high adventure of Pirates of the Caribbean when you're in the Lazar Principalities, as opposed to I'm fighting Sahuagin or a Kraken, right? Like you're getting into the more piratey pirates. But
Yeah, but it's more than that because it's more industrial pirates too,
yeah.
right?
Oh,
Like you're gonna have some funky artificer cannons on the side of your ships, you know?
so much fun. Yeah, the ships are gonna do weird things in Eberron.
Yeah.
Every once in a while a pirate ship will just take flight.
I
We
was literally about to say that I wanted to have a weird conglomeration of that pirate ship is just going to start flying now.
yeah, pirate ship, airship.
Oh,
Why not?
I'm
Yeah,
so into it.
I mean, you
we
just need an air elemental because it can power the sails while you're on the sea, or it can help you take flight.
And if
brilliant.
we're doing Sky Pirates, you know I'm going to be pulling on Tailspin.
Of course. But
Um,
like we did one where one couple of sessions where we had a submarine that was powered by an elemental that would get us through underwater. Like it was a lot of fun you could have with pirates, you know.
yeah, and you're not likely to run into a submarine in the Forgotten Realms the way that you are in Eberron.
No, and I'm talking like straight up, 30,000 leagues under the sea, 20,000 leagues under the sea,
20.
20,000. Sorry, inflation,
It's 2024.
Everything
Yeah,
has to be bigger and better in Eberron,
yeah,
right? We're now
Yeah.
at 30,000.
yeah.
All right, I got a hypothetical question for you guys.
You're skipping me.
Oh, I'm sorry. Favorite
It's
villain or
fine.
villains?
Well, no, it's funny because I'm going to completely disagree with Dave because I want to make the Daughters of Sorakel like the bad. Sure, they're the hags and they're the nation of monsters, but also they're trying to make a place that's safe for them and make them spin them as the good guys. I'm making the Ragamark houses evil. I'm going to lean into every evil little thing that they've done. Yes, the guy in charge of the House of Healing, he made that plague and cured it himself, and that's how he got into power.
Oh, that's fun.
Oh wow, yeah, that is fun.
I'm
Because you're
making,
right, they are not good organizations.
yeah, they all of them are written in with a dark underbelly, and I'm
Yeah.
going to lean on every single one of those dark underbellies.
That campaign is going to be called Eat the Rich.
I mean, I have the right players for it.
Nice.
Okay, so hypothetical question. Keith Baker listens to this episode, loves your opinions, and approaches you with a suitcase full of money to write a supplemental 150-page book to flesh out any single aspect of Eberron. What do you think you'd focus on?
Okay,
Zendrick.
I have a couple of questions I need to know before I can answer this question. Suitcase. Are we talking like a checked bag suitcase here? Are we doing 50 pounds of cash?
No, look, we're talking the stereotypical like FBI or
Oh,
mob
like a little
briefcase.
briefcase full of cash. Oh, okay, okay. And does this have to be like with new character options, or can I write like a 150-page novel?
Well, I was just wondering. Okay, you're not familiar because you started in fifth edition. There were splat books that we used to get in previous editions, which were like almost soft cover some of the times as well, where they would just say, "Here's 80 to 150 pages, entirely based around fleshing out the intricacies of dragon marks," or "Here's all of the details that you will need to know about uh, how beholders work in Eberron," and it was like hyper focused on one thing. But if you want to
Got
write
it.
a novel, you go ahead and write a novel. I was just
Bet.
my original question was like, if you're gonna do a splat book, what's the one thing that you do?
Got it. So sorry, Dave. I cut you off on your splat book. Go for it.
Oh, you're good. I was gonna say Zendrick, just because I like that idea of that ancient overgrown magic. Everything's bigger because it was giants, you know. Things don't fit characters well. There will be challenges there where things don't necessarily fit the way they're supposed to. Just that speaks to me. The being out in the wild, right?
Well,
Of
and the
course.
giants did enslave a lot of regular humanoids, though, right? So you won't run into nothing is your size, but
True. Yeah, yeah. Even like there was the elf passageways, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot to do on Zendrick, but you get almost nothing in the fifth edition book.
Yeah, and I mean that's one of the books I had for 3.5 was Secrets of Zendrick, and like I studied that thing, right? So it's what I know, it's what I like, right?
All right, Scott, what's your answer?
So I'm gonna write a little novel, and I'm going to give a very dramatic depiction of the start of the last war. The whole king, like the rule, like the monarch dying, and then all the infighting that kicks off the war. And I'm literally going to end the book at war, war were declared.
War were declared.
Yep.
Um,
Come on, I had to bring Futurama back in.
yeah,
War were declared.
that's one of my favorite episodes. There've been too many body bags and ball sacks.
Yep, it's a good one.
I've got to say, I want more information. Here's something again. There's so much shit on Eberron, and we haven't talked about the fact that there are orcs and half orcs that are guarding a labyrinth that keeps the demons from overrunning the rest of the material plane. Like it goes down to the underworld. We haven't even talked about this huge maze. I would love to get more details about shit like that. That's wild.
You can write an entire 150-page book of all the random encounters, various maps, and encourage, okay, well, you need to use at least 5 of the 25 maps that I made you because this labyrinth changes.
Yeah. And like you got to think they're little bastions of orcs that have like dug in partway through the maze and shit too, as the front lines in this fight. Like there's a lot going on there. I think it's so cool. But the other thing that we haven't talked about at all is the Draconic Prophecy. Right now, my challenge for you is come up with a definitive answer for a homebrew campaign that you would run. The definitive answer is what is the truth behind the Draconic Prophecy? Dave, and go.
A definitive answer for the Draconic Prophecy.
Yep.
I don't know. I don't. That homebrew isn't something that I do quite a lot of, and what I do is I try to give open-ended questions, and whatever they really gravitate towards, that's what I try to focus on, and that's what I'd probably end up somewhere. Uh, that's a hard one. I think the beauty of Eberron is that the Draconic Prophecy is so open-ended, and I don't think you're gonna get, I don't know, like I just love the idea of leaving it open-ended. I wouldn't answer it. I don't think I would focus on it.
Boo, that doesn't answer the question.
I know, I know.
Dave's truth is that he's not going to do it.
And you know what? I get it. There's only so much you can do in one campaign in Eberron. You cannot do all of it.
No, yeah, I don't know.
Scott, what's your answer for the Draconic Prophecy?
The Draconic Prophecy is essentially the side effects and the showings and the messages of the constant battle between Kyber trying to escape Eberron.
Yeah.
That's it. Kyber's trying to get out, and Eberron doesn't want Kyber to get out. And these are some messages are Kyber messages, some messages are Eberron messages. Do you know which one is which? No, none of this makes sense. But it all boils down to Kyber is trying to get people to do things so she can break free.
Is that what the Calamity in the Moorland's about, or is that just a separate thing?
In my world, yes.
And this is what I love about Eberron, right? Because they just give you here 6 years after the war, this is what you got, do what you want with it.
Well, and I've read Keith Baker has never, in any game he has DM'd, he has never explained the morning.
No.
He said he has played games where the DM has explained the morning, but he simply refuses to do it. And honestly, I respect him more for never giving that answer, because then everyone would accept that answer as fact, and he doesn't want to do that.
Like that's one of the charms of Eberron is it's just so open-ended, you know?
Yeah.
So, our penultimate question here. Do you think Eberron could stand to be the main setting of an edition like D&D, or is it best left as arguably the most popular alternative option?
I think it's best as the most popular alternative option because I feel like the wizards and barbarians and high fantasy setting is really easy for a lot of new players to sink their teeth into and wrap their brain around. It's really easy to understand that. And once you, again, industrialize it, it becomes far more complex Even though it really isn't. It's just I think it's not what is familiar, so it's not going to take off as well. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree with you. It'll be a steeper lore curve. The Forgotten Realms is similar enough to the high fantasy that people have read, including like Lord of the Rings. Like it's close enough that you have a foothold to learn. Eberron is not that.
No.
Scott, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm gonna kind of echo that because no, Eberron should not be the standard setting. It's not gonna give that high fantasy feel that everyone's gonna want when they first start D&D. And in order to make it as accessible to people who are just starting, you'd have to start to water some stuff down, and I don't want them to do that to Eberron.
I also want to say that if you were to put 30 different campaigns like we have for the Forgotten Realms in Eberron, you're going to start getting definitive answers. That's one of the things about 5th edition is a lot of these campaigns they happen on a timeline, right? Like the Rise of Tiamat comes before Out of the Abyss, which comes before Icewind Dale. Like there's a weird evolution here. If you do that in Eberron, you're going to start coming up with definitive answers. You're going to know who runs who runs Karnath. You're going to learn what's in the labyrinth. You're going to know you're going to be working towards figuring out the Draconic prophecy. And when, like you guys say, it's so open-ended, when you start answering those questions,
That's it. There you go.
yeah,
You took away the mystery.
yeah,
Unless you literally rewrite and say, I understand that module said that, but this module says this, which there are people out there who do not want that.
yeah, yeah.
And I
So
think part of the beauty of Eberron is every campaign starts at that same point. It's been what, 6 years since the last war? That's where you're starting.
yeah, and you're not going to like, I mean, you could, but you're not going to jump 150 years into the future. You're not going I mean, the Forgotten Realms, Greyhawk, they have such rich lore and history. Dragonlance is a perfect example. The Dragonlance game, the campaign setting that was released, Shadow of the Dragon Queen, with the board game, Warriors of Krynn, it tells a story that is literally a sequel to everything that's happened up until that point in Dragonlance. And it had to bring together all of these plot lines from novels and video games and previous campaigns. They brought them all together for one big epic push. But then where do you go from there, right? Like if you answer what happened in the Mournland, you're done, right?
Yeah. Which Keith Baker will never stand for that. You don't answer what the Mournland is. You let the DMs pick.
yeah, and it should be different every time.
Oh, absolutely.
So if you were to try to talk a player into trying Eberron for the first time, what would you say?
Oh, you should really listen to this 14-part podcast about what's going
You're
on
such a
in the
piece of
world
shit,
first.
Dave. Right on.
Hey, you know what? It worked for me.
I mean, fair.
Well, I mean, legitimately, I thought about when I was DMing previously, I thought about starting up an Eberron campaign because we were in the middle of changing things around and we were getting into 5th edition, and it was a good jumping off point. And I thought I was in the middle of like producing touring the multiverse at the time as well. So I really had like a good strong, it was really fresh in my head, right? I had some ideas. And I thought, if this is going to take off, everybody needs to sit down and listen to this whole thing first, and they're not going to do that. So, we'll go do something else. But, it really is for the people that love the game that want something more, right? That's what I think. Like if
If you love your table, you love D&D, you love rolling dice, you love building characters, but you have explored so many fucking dungeons and you have slain so many fucking dragons and you're just done with Forgotten Realms.
yeah, this does the same thing, but better.
Yeah, I think Eberron's really good for players that really like their lore. Because it would be hard to do an Eberron campaign with a whole ton of people who don't know much, just because of how much intrigue and noir themes there are. You kind of have to have a base knowledge of every single person on Corvair knows what dragon marks are. They know the typical dragon marks. They know the houses that go with them. And your players kind of need to know that too.
I feel like you're going to dig into the espionage because they're definitive houses with definitive things that they do, and they're just all these different mafias and shit.
Yeah, but
You're
for
right, but
the players that love that kind of stuff, that love to know the lore and all the intricacies that lore can provide, but leave it open-ended enough to see what your DM can do with that. Oh, Eberron's literally everything you need.
it makes me think that like that's if I'm going to dig into the espionage, that's the third campaign that I do in Eberron, right?
Oh
Like
yeah. And even if it's the, well, thank you, dog. Um,
you're popular.
I know, right? No, someone's probably walking half a block away. Thank you, Joe. Where was I?
We were talking
Oh
about
yes, espionage and stuff.
yeah.
And you said third campaign. I mean, even if you want to add that kind of stuff in to your first campaign, I mean, you can start to sprinkle that stuff in once you're hitting like tier 3. Let them take the first 2 tiers, good 10 levels to get used to just how things are a little different in Eberron, but then start really messing with them espionage stuff once they're familiar with what you've already been throwing at them.
Mhm. So, do you guys have any final thoughts about Eberron that you want to get off your chest before we wrap it up? Or is there something that we haven't talked about that you were like, well, how did we not talk about the Lord of Blades, right? Like, is there anything else you want to touch on real quickly before we wrap up?
Okay, but I can go through this book and go, how come we didn't touch that? How come we didn't touch
Oh,
that?
the book is so dense, right? Like, I mean, hell, we got 14 episodes and pared it down too. Like, that could have been 20.
Yeah, that hurt cutting some stuff out.
Well, and you can't just read through the book once cover to cover because you're going to
Oh
start
no,
reading and you're going to go, wait a second, what's that about? And then you'll flip to the page where that's at. And then you'll read, oh, wait, there's these 3 things I haven't read about yet. But then finally, once you start getting to the end and you've started cross-referencing everything, you're going to see the spider web that
Yeah.
has been built in Eberron.
yeah, it probably should be stated. If you can use a textbook proficiently, you will do well with this book. If you can't, if you're not good at like flipping back and forth and figuring out where the information is, it might be hard, right?
Dave, you just recorded an episode, a mailbag episode that said something about like, do you highlight your and underline shit in your D&D books? Eberron is the only book where I'm like, you know what? Maybe you need to.
Oh, yeah, I'd be using tabs for sure.
Oh man, even just like underline like your footnotes of like you underline something and then say, "Oh, this is on this page."
Yeah. It's a research project. It is an intense research project, right? So,
It is, it really is.
And I mean,
um,
there are groups for that. I know there's groups that want that stuff.
absolutely there are. Any other final thoughts?
So many.
Hit me
Look,
with one.
you know what? I want to talk about one of the campaigns that I ran in. It was so much fun. We
Pop off. Let's
yeah,
hear.
it was one of the most memorable sessions that we had was we were going back and forth against the Emerald Claw, and they were being led by a changeling named Garrow, and they had to go to a masquerade ball and get a bunch of information, but they didn't know the context that they had to go and find. Like they just had a name, they didn't know really much else. And it was just, there was no combat. And it was one of the most intense sessions of just, here's a bit of information. And then I sat there quietly as they would just talk amongst themselves and they'd ask me a pointed question. I'd give them like a 2-word answer, and then they would just go right back to it with each other. And it was just like one of the most rewarding sessions that I've had as a DM was doing this in the Eberron campaign. And like I said, that was like a big overarching 3 campaign module that we had gotten. But like we had riding on lightning rails, we had airships crashing, which killed 3 of them because they didn't think to search the bodies of the guards they killed because they all had potions of featherfall. But the players didn't find that, so we ended up almost
You were
killing everybody.
stealing the last thing I wanted to say. I wanted to say if you're going to Eberron, Featherfall.
Yeah,
Half of
featherfall.
your party needs to have access to Featherfall.
You're gonna
You're
need it.
welcome.
Well, like
Well,
we had
or
goblins riding these like little glider things, shooting crossbows at the guys on top of the train. Like you don't get any more epic than that? You want to have these big set piece fights? Eberron, guys. Like we had, like I was talking about the submarine earlier, they had to go out and fight underwater. Like it just, and it happens so naturally and so organically from one session to the other, where we were literally in the sky, on the trains, in the water, and it felt natural, you know?
I gotta say, you guys sitting here talking about Featherfall. Like, clearly, this is the campaign setting that gave us the feather tokens, where you need this because you will fall hundreds of feet to your death just by being in the capital city, and it happens
Yep.
all the time.
Yep. My
Yep.
favorite part, in the book, when it starts talking about Sharn, you get a little newspaper clipping about how some drunk guy fell off of a bridge and killed a halfling couple by falling on them.
Yeah, I think the three-part campaign we did kicked off with, you guys came across a body that fell from a balcony above.
It is literally raining men.
Hallelujah, it's raining men.
Scott, any final thought before we wrap up?
No, I mean, I was just gonna say, if you're going to Eberron, Featherfall's your friend. Like, you will die. Your DM will find a point to kill you if you do not take it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm writing notes. Kill people without Featherfall. Gotcha.
I will take you to the top of Sharn and I will have people push you.
Well, I've given my players an airship now in our campaign, and they're currently at the top of a mountain. So, and none of them have Featherfall.
I'm a rogue fairy though, so I fly, so that's okay.
You do while you're conscious.
Yes.
Well, you can't cast Featherfall if you're unconscious, so there you
I'm
go.
a rogue. I can't cast Featherfall anyways.
Arcane
Yes,
tricksters can get it.
All right. Well, that's all for this discussion on Eberron. Thanks, Scott, for choosing this topic and for creating this with us and supporting the Patreon. And thank everybody else for listening to another episode of the It's a Mimic podcast. If you'd like to support us, we have a donate button on our website, www.itsamimic.com, a store with some It's a Mimic merch, and a Patreon. This episode and others can also be found on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and most other podcast apps. Thanks again for listening to It's a Mimic, where you never know what you're gonna get. But I do have one final question for you guys. Is there another campaign setting after Eberron, not including Forgotten Realms? What's the next thing that interests you? What's the next one that you'd explore?
Okay, but I literally know nothing about any of the other campaign settings. So I'm going to say Galarion, because I play Pathfinder now, and that's where we are in Pathfinder.
What's unique about this one?
They have a lot. So they have it's a whole ton of different continents on there, of course, like a planet would be.
Sure.
But each continent has kind of its own vibe and feel. Like there's one continent that's heavily like Asian culture inspired. I think that's where our next campaign is going to be taking place. I get to be a player in that one. Yippee. I really like the one area. So there's three kind of areas sandwiched in each other in the middle of a desert. To the north, you have the necromancers. To the south, you have I don't remember what they're in charge of. They might be warring necromancers, but I'm probably wrong. But right in the middle, you have essentially the Mournland, but not the Mournland, but it's a magical wasteland. And in the heart of the magical wasteland, you have all of your gunslingers, where they rely heavily on gunpowder. Like, why? I don't know, but I like that it's there.
So it's cowboys versus necromancers?
Literally, I think it's because I know the nations to the north and south of the Mana Wastes hate each other and they like to fight each other. I know one of them's heavy necromancers. I can't remember what the other one's heavy into. And right in the middle, you have your gunslingers trapped in the magical wasteland desert.
I can just imagine that feels like Army of Darkness, with just like the encroaching evil undead army, and here's me with my shotgun.
Yeah, yeah.
Dave, do you have another campaign setting you're interested in?
Oh, he's gonna say Magic the Gathering.
Theros, probably.
Yeah.
I played a shit ton of Magic when Theros was the edition that was out. I think it was what, like 2014, 2015. But Kyle and I played Magic. We would just stay up for weekends playing Magic over and over and over again. And the new set would come with the new expansion. We'd be down buying a booster pack or, like the big booster box and
Why?
splitting.
What intrigues you about that campaign setting?
I just like the idea of the pantheon, like the Greek theme as well. Like I like the idea of the reskinned big monsters like the Tromokratis instead of a Kraken, like that kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah,
It speaks to me. It's again something that I'm familiar with. The Nyxborn side of things, the mythology, like these are things that I have like a genuine interest in outside of D&D. Let's bring these two things together,
cool.
Are you going to be the stereotypical guy and tell me that you think of the Roman Empire every day?
Yes.
Yeah, I thought
Mhm.
so.
Yeah.
God, how often do you think about the Roman Empire?
I'm gay, so not that often.
I'm not, but I never think about the Roman Empire. It is not at all in my like. I could not give less of a shit. If I'm going to think about any sort of old civilization, I'm always thinking Egyptian. I don't know why.
I respect that. The only thing I think about the Roman Empire is that apparently they knew how to build roads.
Many, many roads, and
Mm,
they clearly had asbestos because it didn't burn in a day.
exactly.
No way, it
In
wasn't.
my defense, I play a lot of Civilization 6 and I'm often fighting against the Romans. So,
That is fair. Except for when you're on Minecraft for 16 hours as according to Discord.
oh, is that it?
I have a screenshot on my phone of I don't remember how many hours you were on Minecraft, and I posted it to our patron Discord, and I was like, should we be concerned?
The answer was yes, you should have been concerned. Yeah.
No, I think the actual answer that you said was you had left it running because you had an automated farm going.
Yeah, I got big into like the redstone farms
Look,
and
if you have an automated farm in Minecraft, I'm already concerned about you.
oh, no, I didn't have one. I had many.
I'm extra concerned.
The difficult part was making sure that you could make a safe space between them all so that they were in your render area so that they could all work while you AFK'd on your computer, but then you went to your console and played in the same realm to do other things.
There's one thing you should know is Dave doesn't. He's not one of these gamers that I'll play this game when I'm done. I put it down and I move on to the next game. He lives and breathes like 2 or 3 games a year, and that's it.
Yep.
And Minecraft has been one of that.
To
You
be
were
fair, that's turning into me in Baldur's Gate 3 this year.
Right now I'm playing a lot of Gloomhaven. It's the board game, but I got it off of Steam and I'm absolutely thrilled with it. I love it. And Civilization 6. But
I'm
Yeah, I don't have time to play Civilization anymore. I have a full-time job and I go to school part-time.
I just leave it on and then, play 2 hours at a time over the course of like 7 weeks because that's how long it takes.
I play online chess. Does that count?
Yes.
Nerd! I say as if we didn't just record a full D&D episode podcast about the most popular other campaign setting. Yeah, okay.
This was actually a load of fun. This is a blast.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah. Once I finished my first episode with you, Adam, I was like, so do we ever do episodes with other people? Because of course, my gay ass at first, I'm like, I want to get Megan on an episode, but then I'm like, Megan's been through enough with this whole Patreon thing. We'll just do Eberron and Dave because Dave doesn't care about what anyone thinks.
No, I do not.
Ain't that the goddamn truth?
So we'll start with Dave. And I mean, literally, I found you guys through these Eberron episodes. I fell in love with them. It's why I love Eberron as much as I do. And I'm like, if I get to do my own Eberron episode, nothing else matters.
Yeah, this all came up and at a time where it allowed me to just kind of like focus on this, and it was a super healthy thing for me to be doing at the time. And like I feel like I really poured a lot of passion into it, and I'm loving that people are
And
loving
you
it
can
as well.
tell. You can
Appreciate that.
tell.
Well, thank you.
Dave, I can't remember. Did we do this during the lockdown?
No, this was before that. We did
Yeah.
the undead stuff, the mob episodes during lockdown.
Right.
This was back when I remember recording up in the front room here at my place, playing after a round of golf. And then my knee was so swollen. That was how long ago it was as well, when I was having my knee problems.
Yeah,
And my knee was so big, I sat there with a bag of frozen peas on it while we recorded.
I remember that. Yeah. It
All
was
right,
also
let's see. Well,
stinking hot.
actually, the very first episode of Eberron on Spotify is credited to the 18th of May, 2020.
Oh, but we would have recorded it
Oh, yeah.
prior to.
Yeah.
We were long before that. I think that we recorded it in November, December.
Yeah, it would have been the winter or like late fall.
And I remember just sweating in that room because the furnace was cranking.
Mhm. Cranking.
All right. On that note, thanks, Dave. I'm gonna save this episode.
On the brand new computer.
Yes. This is going to be. We didn't release any episodes this past week because I am transferring everything over, and this laptop can do one thing and one thing only at a time. So we're gonna get extra episodes next week and the week after to make up for it. But I can't wait to edit on a computer that will not turn itself off in 3 hours.
Oh, won't that just be nice? See,
That
that's
sounds
why I have a
awesome.
desktop here, and I've already, let's see, I bought this as a pre-built from Best Buy. In the less than year and a half I've had it, I've added a new solid state drive and more RAM.
Yeah, I did
Yeah,
something similar.
I've got a desktop model as well, and it will just be upgraded. Like I don't think I'm ever going to need another editing computer.
I literally bought a 2 terabyte solid state drive, $100.
Well,
Oh,
that's not bad at all.
yeah,
Oh,
that's all right.
Yeah, and then
Okay,
I left in the half a terabyte it came with, so I have 2.5 terabytes.
well, that's not bad.
I actually have been loading up a hard drive with all of the It's a Mimic stuff to save it separately from everything else, and we've got over a terabyte and a half of It's a Mimic content, just like videos and episodes and script breakdowns, and there's so fucking much.
Yeah,
I
Gonna have
believe
to
it.
gonna have to purge it.
Call of Cthulhu stuff on there yet to be released.
Yeah, yes, there's a fuck ton of it. The folder for Call of Cthulhu I had to do in 4 parts because it took over 12 hours to drag across. There's so much stuff there. Anyway, I'm done complaining about it. I'm going to
Sweet.
save
Well,
this
No, you're
episode.
not.
Any questions before we get this one rolling?
Oh, no, but as per my tradition, I need to go get my shot ready.
Yeah, hold on, me too. Dave, get some liquor.
Hey, it's not 9 a.m. like I originally thought you guys were going to take a shot at, so
So it'll just be you and me doing this, Scott. I am drinking right from a bottle of Glenfiddich.
I poured myself a shot from the giant handle of Woodford Reserve that I had just bought yesterday.
All righty. So, bottoms up before we get into it.
Cheers, cheers.
That is taking a swig of sipping whiskey. Oh,
Yeah, that was also me taking a swig of sipping whiskey.
God. I love single malt scotch, but at 10 a.m. on a freaking Saturday, it's a bit much.
At least it's 11 for me.
Yeah.
For some reason, 11 seems better to have a shot of whiskey than 10 does.
Well, at 11 o'clock, you're mimosa time, right? At 10 o'clock, you're just an alcoholic.
Yeah, yeah.
My breath could I could light it on fire right now.
Literally don't light a cigarette.
Yeah. Dave,
Yes.
when are we going to play an Eberron campaign?
I don't know. I've done a bunch of them.
I want to play in an Eberron campaign.
Yeah, it's great.
You did a bunch of them with your other friends. Like I didn't get a chance to. You played in a way more than I have.
Yeah, no, I've done like many modules. I think I did a 3-part module, and we finished each and every part.
Which alone is a feat. That's impressive.
Yeah, that was like when like my OG Thursday group was going hard. So
How many of them are still standing now in your current group?
Guppy,
Is that it?
yeah. I mean, Anthony kind of dipped in and out here and there.
Would you
but
say
Kyle was a late addition,
Would you
right?
say your D&D group has like significantly like evolved over the years?
Well, I mean, it had to. Like, Alex clearly isn't playing anymore.
Why? What happened to him? Yeah.
Yeah, right. And then Jade and Nabila were playing, but then they moved like 5 hours away, and it just wasn't working. So the two of them bowed out, but I mean, Nabil wasn't. She was just kind of there because,
Of course.
yeah. But
Do you
which
like?
was fine. Like, let me tell you, she was probably the player I had that put the most work in until Kyle. Kyle puts the most work in by a long shot, and it's not.
Oh, yeah. I don't know anybody as dedicated to the story as Kyle is.
Yeah, but I know Nabila would like spend hours studying to try to figure her stuff out, like, and make sure she knew her stuff when it was her turn.
I
So
appreciate the shit out of that.
yeah, I really did too. Like it didn't come naturally, but she busted her ass. So, which was nice because like it doesn't come naturally for a couple other players and they didn't bust their ass. So,
Yeah. Hey, Scott, because I know you're listening all the way to the end on this episode. I just wanted to let you know that I'm going to go into YouTube where we keep all of our playlists, and I'm going to add this to the end of the Eberron playlist. So there'll be the original 14 episodes that you first discovered the podcast on, the 2 recent ones where we covered the Eberron races, the lore episode for Eberron, and then, of course, this one. So you are officially now part of the It's a Mimic Eberron narrative.